welcome back to the rules of engagement. Before we start the next section, let me just encourage you guys to go to www.fullsail.edu for more information about how to become proficient with all these cool things like graphic animation, game design, all those things that I'm sure you've seen the promos before. They all are used to build games like Starcraft 2. We use them here to make these shows and to make our production. So if you want to be a factor in that in the future, go to fullsail.edu, www.fullsail.edu, fill out the form about what programs you're interested in, and they'll basically tell you what different offerings they have. So let's jump into this next game. It's going to be basically the Hellbat Revolutions, and we're first going to talk about, it's going to be about Terran versus Zerg in this game. This is going to be talking about some early Hellbat pressure you can do, and then it's going to talk about utilizing medevacs against Zerg, and then also late game using Ravens as a gas dump if all your minerals are being used on those Hellions. How can you utilize that gas? Let's experiment with Ravens. Why not? They look pretty fun and cool, right? So let's jump into this replay. It's the 8:30 mark so far. And basically, I just open with, a fairly standard, expansion, get a bunch of factories to reactors, because that's how you make the Hellbats. Going double army for upgrades. The one thing that's important here, if you look through my viewpoint, is my map vision is pretty terrible, and that's really bad. So, if you're playing Terran, make sure either your map vision is great or you're ready for counterattacks. Like I should have, leave a couple of Hellbats at home for against the Zerg counterattack. Something like that, because I'm going down, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go kill him with Hellbats, right? And that's a good idea, because Hellbats go and kill him. But the downside is that when I'm going to kill him with Hellbats, these Zergings run in here. And while I'm, pretty quick on my feet to get this wall going, so I'm not going to die, I lose a lot of SCVs here. We can see I've already lost 10 SCVs, and that's a significant loss I really don't want to encounter. So don't do what I do. Make sure you either keep, like, two Hellbats would kill... Yeah, 2 Hellbats would kill, like, a billion Zergings, right? Probably. They at least do well enough that, you could have time to get a couple more Hellbats out. But meanwhile, on the other hand, my drop is doing pretty well here. I'm going to transform all these guys to Hellbats once I kind of get my defense solidified up. And as soon as they're all in Hellbat mode, you can actually take down a hatchery pretty darn quick, because Hellbats do a lot of damage against everything. So, they're doing pretty well here. And the thing is, with early on Hellbats, a lot of Terrans are scared of moving out with your army when you can't put it all in a medevac early, right? This is a very common theme in Terran versus Zerg, is that if you can't fill your guys in a medevac, don't move out early, because speeding and baiting will kill you. But Hellbats are basically strong versus anything Zerg has early. So you don't have to be afraid of taking a battle with them. Yes, I can't lift off and save all my guys, but it's okay. Let's check out the units lost here. It's almost exactly even. He lost hatchery and some drones. I lost a bunch of SCVs and two depots, right? And he's got this giant Zergling baiting army, but all I have to do is spread the Hellbats out a little bit, and then all of a sudden, all his guys are going to die. And, I'll take some losses, right? But if you look here, it was even, and all of a sudden, look how much more he lost than me. And this is because Hellbats are cost-efficient versus pretty much everything. So don't be afraid to take battles. Even if you might lose the battle, you'll probably come out ahead just because they'll kill so many units before they die. So then you can put on some more Hellbat pressure and just keep putting under pressure. I tried to split it versus the Banings. Wasn't the best split. But even so, I'm still totally fine units lost column just because they're so cheap. So you can use the medevacs to circumvent those spine crawlers. His queen's down my medevac. That was a mistake on my part. But I can still do okay against these queens, putting them in the deep red. Meanwhile, even a spine crawler really can't stand up too well to these Hellbats. You can pick them up and drop them off to preserve them from that spine core, because then the medevac will heal them back up again. Again, they're a little mistake against the Banelings. I'm not... my Hellbat micro isn't quite par, but even with all these micro mistakes, the unit lost tab is very, very strong in my favor. And I can come in here again and just roast up some more Zerglings. Eventually, with all those queens, and he'll eventually be able to overpower the Hellbats. With good micro, even if you can always just pick the guys up and get out of there. In any case, Hellbats are always a good option. So you can see I just keep cranking them out, put some pressure on. At this point, I should use the Barracks of Scout as main. If I did so, I'd have realized he's got a Spire. So that's a mistake on my part. You might as well use that Barracks of Scout. But what I do is when the Mutas come, I just use the Jets on the medevac so they can escape, and he has to go back and deal with these Hellbats that are going to do. They're going to die to the Mutalisk, but they're still going to do some decent damage beforehand, as you can see. Even though he got a bunch of free units, you're still cost efficient. It's just the nature of mech. So I also should do a better job scouting, because this is a very vulnerable base to harass. And it also bought me enough time to get up some missile turrets, which are very, very useful against defending against the Mutas. Of course, it can be annoying to the command center. I'm having to build a couple Thors here just to help defend. Ideally, I would just make pure Hellbats, but you know, if they get those Mutas harassed, you've got to add in a couple Thors to defend. So now it's just going to be a basic macro and you know, building up for a bit, taking this expansion. The next thing I want to talk about, though, is the fact that you can do these small mech pushouts, or small pushouts in general against us. A little bit of a miss round on the Medivacs against Mutalists. So something that's common in Wings of Liberty is if your opponent has Mutalists, you can't really move out unless you know your army is strong enough to handle theirs pretty well. Because you can't escape, right? Already against Speeding Balian, you can lift up the Medivacs and get out of there. Against Mutalists, you can't really do that, right? So if you'd be afraid of engagement against this many Roaches and I only had a few Hellbats, I knew I was going to lose the battle. But it's okay, because you can pick off Medivacs, and even if you have Mutalists left here, all you have to do is hit the jets, and the Medivacs actually outrun Mutalists. By the time the jets were off, you're usually close enough to home, they're going to make it out. So you can be very okay to do these small army pushouts. They're much less risky because of that new Medivac speed boost upgrade you have. And of course, SCVs can both repair the Hellbats and the Thor, so it's a good combination. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is, as we notice this, what's happening is, as I've been investing, I mean, the Thor slowed down my gas buildup, but I'm still getting almost all Hellbats. Now I'm on 6 gases, too. So I'm starting to build up a lot of extra gas. And as soon as I'm done with these upgrades, which I'm getting the last one now, so there's no more gas being spent on upgrades from here on out, that means I'm going to start building up a ton of extra gas. So it's time to start experimenting with using Ravens as a gas dump. And again, as you can see here, I'm totally fine doing this small move out because I know I can pick up at least some of the guys and save them. And also, it's just a very cost-efficient army, right? So even though he has a Swarmos and the Roaches, one big mistake I make is, for some reason, I think I transform the guys into Hellions and try to run into the Roaches, and I lose a bunch of guys, and then I transform back whenever I lost them. So don't transform your guys mid-battle. Went over that last break, but it's not a good idea. But anyway, it's still a decent trade. If you look at units lost, it's still in my favor, just because the Hellbats are basically free. You can afford to lose them all. Then you can try to pick up the Thors before you lose too many of them. Of course, 3 Medivacs, 1 Thor has to decide to... Well, he actually is going to hoof it on foot, and he's going to make it out. So he got lucky there. And all these trades, just using Hellbats is fine. You know, like I was saying, I was building up a lot of gas, so I can spend that on transitioning over to a lot of Ravens. And this is something I've been experimenting a little bit with, is seeing how good are Ravens with all their abilities. And we can just check that out in the next couple engagements. You know, I'm still going to stick with mostly Hellbats just because that's the whole point, is trying out how good are Hellbats against... That's the whole point of this last couple of games I've been doing, is trying to figure out how good Hellbats are versus various units. And so far, it seems they're good against almost everything. But now we're going to try to mix in some Ravens as well and see how well those do. So, of course, he's counterattacking me. And he's got a really nice setup. If you're a Zerg player, do this all the time. Get a bunch of Spine Crawlers and a bunch of Swarmos, because the Swarmos will force them to come to you, and the Spine Crawlers can protect them. But now onto the Ravens. As you can see here, the Hunter Seeker Missile and Heartless Swarm is only 75 energy, but it does 100 damage, so most units take 2 to kill. If you can get things that are static like Swarm Hosts, and you can hit like 300 Seeker Missiles here, will actually kill basically everything about here. So it ended up killing like about 7 Swarm Hosts and then a bunch of Zerglings as well. So the Seeker Missiles are very good versus static units that are slow moving. Unfortunately, my opponent is actually really good at micro, so he spreads his units out, and if you notice, these Seeker Missiles still connect. But since he did such a good job of spreading his units out, I don't get that full AoE I want, and the Spine Crawlers force my army to back up, as I can't really... I mean, I'm try it, but it's kind of dumb. I can't really take that many Spine Crawlers. That's actually pretty cool Seeker Missile, blows up all the mutas. Keeps them back. Can't really take them all on my own. So, all in all, you know, the Ravens, I think they're really good against slow-moving targets. They're really good against Hive Tech, things like Broodlords, Corruptors, those type of things. Against these Lair Tech units that are either too fast or too cheap, they seem to lose some of their value. Of course, things like the auto turrets are still great to support. Point defense runes is still great. And they're also pretty good at escaping battles because their movement speed is actually pretty good. Ravens are faster than people realize. And of course, point defense drones or auto turrets cast behind you can help you escape. So, you know, I just keep building more Ravens. And then, of course, the next battle, I have enough Ravens that when we come in here, all of a sudden what I can do is I can do things like, just fast forward this a bit. I can just come in here and just force his units to run away via using these Seeker Missiles. they run out of range, the Seeker Missiles don't hit. But the idea here is, well, either he'll die to the Seeker Missiles, or he'll run away so they don't hit, but then he'll have to sacrifice all his spines. And now he has no spines, and I can keep launching a few more Seeker Missiles at all of his guys over here. And some more nice micro by him trying to spread his guys out, so only getting a couple of those really big AoE shots. But even with only a couple, you can still damage them enough. Another Seeker goes up onto Roaches, blows up all those. And behind us, even if I don't win the battle, the Ravens aren't going to die, so it's very cost efficient in either case. So you can see here I'm going to go on to win because I just kill his army and then kill his last base here. But the whole idea of this is basically experience with the Hellbat, right? And so we found out the Hellbat beats pretty much all his units early, so don't be afraid to be aggressive with it, but just be careful for counterattacks. While you're being aggressive with it, try to utilize the medevacs to save hurt Hellbats and get out of situations where you're vastly outnumbered. If they go muteless, you can actually be very aggressive with small army movements that you couldn't do in Wings of Liberty, because in Wings of Liberty, if you move out and they have too many speedies and banelings, they can surround your army, or roaches, whatever it is, they can surround your army, take it out. You can't get away into medevacs because the muteless will kill you. Heart of the Swarm, you can now use the Ignite Afterburners, and your medevacs are fast enough to evade muteless pursuit. So you can do a lot more little aggressive move outs to keep the Zerg on their toes more. Late game, if you build up a lot of gas, Ravens can work. The Hunter Seeker, I think, is extremely effective against Broodlords, and is pretty effective against Corruptors as well, because they're spreading out their Corruptors. The Corruptors aren't attacking you. Your Vikings are getting their shots in. The Ravens, though, I think aren't that great against an opponent who's going things like Mutilus, not so great against them. They're very fast. Roaches, they're okay against. Mostly good against a Hive Tech. In the case that they're going Mutus and Roaches and more low-tech stuff, I advise burning that gas on battle cruises. As battle cruises are exceptionally powerful against anything that's at a lower tech level. So Ravens are fun, but I might try using the BCs a little more to supplement my army as a gas dump. So wraps up this segment of the Hellbat Revolutions. I hope you guys enjoyed all three of these little Hellbat segments, as I enjoyed trying to test out and see their strengths and weaknesses. We'll take a short break and then be back with a question and answer portion.